Suella Braverman threatening to resign. That's like getting your lottery numbers in a line on a Saturday afternoon. That's like watching your team romp home 14-0 in the FA Cup final. Suella Braverman is threatening to resign. Any other Prime Minister in history would be dancing a victory jig on St Stephen's Green. Finally, Rishi Sunak would say, some good news. Suella Braverman is threatening to resign. This is fantastic. But Brexit, plus Boris Johnson, plus lie after lie after lie after lie, has created an ecosystem in which Suella Braverman threatening to resign is a problem for a Prime Minister on the same side of the Brexit debate. And that's the nuttiness of it all. They're on the same team. They both wanted it. They both voted for it. They both campaigned for it. They both cheered to the rafters the so-called oven-ready deal that Boris Johnson signed. Now, one of them wants to stick to it, and one of them wants to retain the freedom to abandon it, to abnegate our responsibilities, to tear it up and throw it in the air and pretend it never happened. That's where Brexit is now. So how does that reach your ears? Here's one. Shut up, you mug, has come in by text. I guess that's all you've got, isn't it? Really? Now? Stop it, James! Stop telling me the truth about my own actions and convictions. How dare you? Shut it, you mug! It's brilliant, isn't it? What else are you going to do? Seriously. So now you've got a Home Secretary, Tory, Brexiter, threatening a Prime Minister, Tory, Brexiter, with resignation if he signs up to a deal that would involve sticking to the terms of the last deal that they both got elected in the last... where do you even start? Right, let's try and unpick it. Ready? So, we have a Tory Home Secretary, Brexiter, threatening a Tory Prime Minister, Brexiter, with her resignation if he signs up to something that would entail them abiding by the terms and conditions of the treaty that they signed in order to get Brexit done. That's where we are now. Even I can't find the words to get this correct. I'm going to, though. I'm not going home until I have. This could be a long show, Keith. Buckle in, mate. 10:07 is the time. So a Tory Brexiter Home Secretary is threatening a Tory Brexiter Prime Minister with her own resignation if he insists on abiding by the terms and conditions of the treaty that they both voted for. Go on, riddle me that. And 80% of the British media is either pretending this isn't happening, misrepresenting it completely, or looking the other way. A Tory Brexiter Home Secretary, along with a bunch of other headbangers, is threatening to resign from the government of a Tory Brexiter Prime Minister because he is minded to abide by the terms and conditions of the withdrawal agreement that they both voted for in Parliament. 2 years ago, was it? 3 years ago? The man who supposedly negotiated that deal, or at least the man who signed it after appointing an absolute apology called David Frost to negotiate it, the man who signed the deal is leading the calls for the current Prime Minister, his successor but one. Never forget about the woman that got rinsed by a lettuce. He is leading the calls. Boris Johnson is leading the calls for the man who succeeded the woman who succeeded him not to abide by the rules of the treaty that he signed in order to, in his own words, get Brexit done. In other words, Rishi Sunak wants to stick to the terms of the oven-ready deal that got Boris Johnson elected, and Boris Johnson thinks that this is an outrageous betrayal of Brexit. What are we going to do, man? What are you going to come up with? If only Margaret Thatcher was in charge. I don't know. What do you do if you're still clinging to the carcass? What do you do? How do you make sense of this? Do you just start shouting about small boats? Get on a train down to Dover with your Fisher-Price binoculars and start taking photographs of desperate refugees? Is that how you play this? Because here's something else that you're probably not hearing anywhere else. There were no so-called small boats before 2018. They are a direct consequence of Brexit-related decisions. The abandonment of the Dublin Convention means that we have no right of return. We don't have it. We got rid of it. We didn't use it much, so we're still safe routes by which people could get here. But even the small boats are a consequence of these idiots in charge. So they create, and in many ways you can see a parallel now, because you're a bit quicker than I am on the uptake on a Tuesday morning. Here's the parallel. They've created the so-called crisis regarding refugees in small boats, and yet they're campaigning furiously to fix it by sending people to Rwanda or building a big house out of Lego and sticking everyone in that. They created the problem, but they're now using it to whip up essentially race riots in some parts of the country, Because the alternative would be to own the mess that they've made. And in many ways, that's identical to what Boris Johnson has done with Brexit, which is sign a deal, claim that it's brilliant, and then 10 minutes later start arguing that the bloke who succeeded him can't possibly abide by the terms of the deal that he signed, because to do so would be a betrayal of the deal that he signed. I may have to give prizes today to callers. Because if you can make sense of this, then you should probably be writing my next book. I can't. All I can do is catalogue the calumnies. List the lies. Detail the deceptions. There's no alternative to this. There is no other side. Who'd you book now? Andrea Leadsom? Nadine Dorries? Marc Francois? Remember him? Who'd you book now to come in and say, well, actually, I think you'll find everything's going swimmingly? Rees-Mogg, I suppose. How do you do it? So the deal that you signed, the deal that you voted for, is now something that Rishi Sunak can't possibly agree to abide by. He has to simultaneously pass a law saying we will abandon it at our whim and whimsy. You're back to that person, Brandon Lewis, standing up about 10 minutes after the deal was signed, saying we were planning to break the international law in a very limited and specific way. Holy McMoly, what a gleaming mess.